Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome to our kitchen. I'm the penguin.
And I'm the chef.
And he's the chef. And we had a viewer, a friend of ours, sweet lady, Lady Nighthawk. She was telling me about how much her dad loved coconut cream pie, but that she had a little bit of problem with her meringue turning out. So we had some Coco López left in our refrigerator, and I thought, what an opportunity to get rid of the rest of our Coco López. Because when we start our diet, we're not going to be needing that anymore. And coconut cream pie is one of those pies that you can make anytime, cold or hot. Doesn't matter the weather. Tastes good just the same. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to make our famous coconut cream pie. So I hope you guys will stick around, join us, and if you like it, make it for your family. And also, please check out any of our other videos if you'd like to. If you like any of them, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. We love reading your comments. Even if it's constructive criticism, it's okay. We don't mind. We love reading all the comments. If you subscribe to our channel and you have a channel and you'd like for us to subscribe to you, just please leave a link to your channel in the comment section. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to pre-bake my pie crust. I do know how to make homemade pie crust, but it's just time consuming. It's so much cheaper just to buy one and bake it yourself. That's just my opinion. So that's what we're going to do first. So I have my oven right now preheating to 450 degrees, and we're going to roll this pie shell out into the pan. Okay, and we're back. I had to switch out my pie plate because the one that I had was not the one that we always use for our coconut cream pie. It was actually a little bit too deep since we're making a meringue this time. Sometimes when I do the coconut cream pie, I'll just do a whipped cream topping instead of the meringue, but sometimes we do the meringue, so...
I'm glad my mom switched to having the pies made instead of making them herself, because I was meringue boy. I had to sit and whip up all that meringue every morning for those pies. Saved my wrist.
I was working. Thank goodness. But now that I've gotten older, I do love to make pies. I don't need to be making pies, Lord knows, but I love making them. Okay.
I learned a lot of my cooking stuff from my mom and from my dad. My dad taught me all the stuff that his dad and stuff used to do years ago when things were a lot harder, Depression era kind of stuff, and not wasting things, and poor man's recipes. And there's 2 or 3 of our poor man's recipes on our site if anybody's interested.
Yeah, his dad used to tell me about how when he was growing up, his mom used to make water gravy all the time.
Yeah.
Instead of like milk gravy, she used to make it with water.
They didn't have milk.
And they ate a lot of rabbit. They ate a lot of, squirrel, stuff like that.
Chicken feet.
Oh, yes, and the chicken feet. Lord knows, we've already told him about the chicken feet.
He said sometimes when he was little, they might only get meat once or twice a week.
Okay, so I've got my pie crust laid out in my pan now. I'm just going to fold over my edges a little bit. Not very much. You want them to hang over a little bit. That's why I use a smaller pan. Because since we're going to be adding meringue to it, we want the meringue to have something to adhere to. So I'm just going and lightly folding my crust over where it needs to be, where it's hanging over. And when I get done doing this, I'll be back to show you. Okay, now I'm just going to go through and I'm going to pinch my crust. I just put my index finger and my thumb, if you can see that, and just pinch them together. My index finger and my thumb. Probably kind of hard to see. Or you can do it this way. If you can see just one finger in, one finger out. Just gives it that, what do you want to call it?
Homemade look.
Well, there's a scalloped look, I guess is what I'm trying to say, around your pie crust that you normally see if you purchase a crust that's already done. So I'll get the rest of this done and we'll be back. Okay, if you can see, we've got our edges all scalloped now. You can see that. Now what we're going to do, just to keep our crust from blowing up at us, is I'm going to go through with a fork, and I'm just going to poke some holes all through my pie crust, all through the bottom. And I'm also going to do it around the sides. That just keeps it from bubbling up. Makes a nice even crust. So I've got my oven preheated to 450 degrees. And I'm going to stick this in as soon as I get done. And we're going to bake our pie crust for about 10 minutes. We want it to get that light golden brown. And as soon as we're done, we'll be back to show you. Okay, and there's our pie crust all pre-baked and ready to go. Now we're going to talk about our filling, the ingredients for our filling, and we're going to start cooking that. Okay, now before we get into the rest of our ingredients that we're going to need, one of the important things that you want to do when you're going to make meringue for the top of your pie is you want to separate your eggs first. You want to do it while they're cold. Not only the white separates from the yolk easier, but you also want to let your whites get to room temperature because that will produce a fluffier meringue. So that's what we're going to do first. Got 2 bowls here. We're going to need 4 eggs for this coconut cream pie. So I'm going to crack one of my eggs, and I'm going to separate my whites into a bowl right here. Get all my whites out. And I got yolks going into another bowl over here. Make sure we get all of our white out of here. Separates much easier when they're cold like this. There goes my second white. And you want to make sure not to get any yolk into your egg white, because if you do, your egg white will not set up. All right, and number 4.
Yeah, she's right about the egg yolk. Not even a itty bitty tiny bit.
Yeah.
Get a little bit in there, it's pretty much done.
Yeah, if you get any egg yolk into it at all, you're going to have to start from scratch. So now we've got our eggs separated. I'm going to let these whites sit at room temperature. And I'm going to take a fork and I'm going to lightly beat up our yolks. Okay, I'm going to take my whites. And another thing I want to mention, I'm going to transfer my whites into this bigger bowl because this is what I'm going to beat our meringue into. You want to make sure that your bowl is completely clean and dry. That it has no grease residue in it, no oil residue in it, or any water. You want to make sure it's good, clean, and dry. Because meringue is just funny that way. It doesn't like to cooperate if it has anything else in the mix. Okay, so I've got my yolks here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly beat these ahead of time because we're going to temper these in just a little bit and put that into our mixture for our coconut cream pie. All right, so we've got our eggs lightly beaten for that. Okay, now to talk about the rest of the ingredients that we're going to need for the filling for our coconut cream pie. We're going to need 2 cups of milk. You can either use whole percent or whole milk or 2%. We're going to need 1 cup of heavy whipping cream. And you're going to need 1 cup of Coco López. And this is, if you've ever seen it in your market, this is what they usually use when you make a good pina colada or anything like that. It says cream of coconut. It's not coconut milk. This is cream of coconut, and it's very sweet. So I had this in the refrigerator, and we're going to use the rest of that. We're going to use a cup of that. And you're also going to need 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar. I've got my sugar over here. We're going to use 1/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. We're going to use a dash of salt. We're going to use 1.5 cups of sweetened coconut flake, which I've got my coconut back there in the back. Of course, we've already talked about our eggs, 4 egg yolks. We're going to use 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract and 1 tablespoon of butter. But we're not going to put our vanilla extract or our butter in until we're ready to put it into the pie shell. So we're going to get situated and we're going to start adding our ingredients. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do our 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar. I've got my 1/4 of a cup measuring right here. There's 1, 2, and 3. That's our 3/4 of a cup of sugar. Now what we want to add to this is we want to add 1/4 of a cup of cornstarch plus 2 tablespoons. So I'm going to use my spoon here to give me a hand. And I'll be right back. Okay. Here's my 1/4 of a cup of cornstarch going in. And I also need 2 more tablespoons. There's 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. Oops. And 2. All right. That looks good.
That way.
Okay. Now we want a dash of salt. Just a dash. Not a pinch. Not a spoonful. Just a dash of salt. All right. We got that in here. Now I'm just going to whisk it to combine it all. Whisking is the new sifting, they always say. I've heard a lot of people say that. Whisking is the new sifting. Okay. We have that in there now. What we want to do to this is we want to add 2 cups of milk. How many of you like coconut cream pie? It's one of my ultimate favorites. Okay, 1 cup. There goes our milk. Get that situated. All right. To that, we want to add 1 cup of heavy whipping cream. I always shake up my heavy whipping cream before I pour it. This one's about empty, so we bought an extra one because we knew we were going to need it. Okay. Let me get this other one open.
Pie and bacon are a lot alike to me. You can never have enough bacon, or bacon's good on everything, and there's never a wrong time for pie.
Are you talking about bacon, like the meat bacon?
Yeah, like bacon.
Oh, yeah. You got to have bacon for everything.
Yeah, there's never a wrong time for pie, no matter what kind of pie it is.
Okay, and there goes our 1 cup of heavy cream. All right. Now that we have those 2 things in there, we want to get our Coco López. Can you give me a spoon, Chef?
Table or tea?
Tablespoon. Penguin forgot to grab a tablespoon for her Coco López. And don't be alarmed when you see the Coco López. It looks like lard or fat.
Doesn't taste like it though.
But that's okay. No, it doesn't taste like it. And it will melt down. Sometimes it separates in the can and it'll get a little liquidy. But that's okay. It's still Coco López all the same. All right. Whoops, bumped the camera. And if you can see, well, you probably can't see that because the camera's at the wrong angle. But I did have a little liquid that came out of the can. If you can see that. Kind of runs out like water.
Yeah, a little oily looking.
Yeah, a little oily looking. I think we've got just about enough to do this pie. All right. Okay. So we're going to add our Coco López in here. This is very sweet and it has an amazing coconut flavor. You can buy this anywhere. If you're looking for it at Walmart, they usually keep it over where they sell the alcohols, because a lot of people use this when they make their pina coladas and different drinks like that. So that's where they hide the Coco López usually. It's so wonderful though. I absolutely love Coco López. It's wonderful in coconut cakes, any kind of coconut dessert where you want to have a real good coconut flavor.
Rice.
Oh yeah, even rice. We use Coco López in our coconut and lime rice. I think we have a video on here where we've made something that was we made some coconut lime rice.
Yeah, we made the cook for the Waikiki pork chops.
And we used Coco López in that. All right, so we've got all of that in here now. We've got our milk, our heavy cream, and our Coco López. We have our sugar, our cornstarch, and our salt. There's one last thing we're going to add to this before we start cooking that, and that's coconut. And here I've got some sweetened coconut flakes. We'll get this opened up. And we want to add 1.5 cups of coconut flake to this. See if I can do this without getting it everywhere but in the pan. Because that's me. Alright. There's about 1 cup of coconut. We want just a little bit more. Get this. Alright. That's about 1/2 cup right there. Alright. I'm going to give this a little mix right here. Got everything in the pan. Give it a little stir. I can't even talk. Give it a little stir. We're going to get this over to the stove. What we want to do initially is we just want to get it to the point where it just starts to boil. Once it starts to boil, we're going to take it off of the heat, and then we're going to temper our eggs. So we'll show you. Okay, so we have our mixture on the stove now. I have my heat on about medium high. We're just going to stir this. We're going to keep stirring it. Like I said, we're going to stir it until it gets just to a boil. When it does, we'll bring you back and I'll show you how I temper the eggs. I also wanted to let you know when you're stirring this, if you're using a coated pan, make sure you're using something plastic, but you want to get to the bottom. You want to make sure that you're running your spoon or your whisk all the way to the bottom, because sometimes the cornstarch will settle to the bottom, and you want to always keep it incorporated. So I just wanted to give you that little hint. Okay, our mixture is just starting to come to a light boil now. I can feel the resistance a little bit where it's wanting to start to get a little bit thick. So what we're going to do now is we're going to shut off our heat. And we're going to temper our eggs. And to temper our eggs, you're going to take a little bit of the mixture. Just a little bit. And you're going to pour it into those beaten eggs that we had. And we're just going to stir it around and whisk it, because we don't want our eggs to turn into scrambled eggs. That's why we temper the eggs before we put them back into the mixture. Okay. Now we've got our eggs tempered a little bit. Now we're going to pour it back into our mixture. And we're going to whisk it. Just going to whisk it all around. Get all of our egg out of the bowl. All right. And we're just going to whisk it. All right. Now we've got that done. We're going to go ahead and turn our burner back on where it was. About medium high. We're just going to stir this until it gets good and thick. Shouldn't take too long because it's already starting to get thick. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's clinging. The cornstarch is doing what it's supposed to do. We're just going to keep stirring this until it gets thick. And when it gets to where we want it, we'll be back. Okay, if you can see our mixture now, it's nice and thick. This is how we want it to be. Very thick. Smells very much like coconut. Now, right before we put it in our pan, what we're going to do is we're going to take 1 tablespoon of butter. We're going to put a tablespoon of butter in here. Just 1 tablespoon. Get that in there. We also want to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Just going to eyeball 1 teaspoon. All right. That should be plenty right there. And we're going to whisk this all around until the butter melts. Get this all incorporated. This makes a wonderful, thick, luscious pie. So delicious. Any time of the year. Can never go wrong with pie. All right. Okay, we've got this all incorporated now and our butter's melted. I'm going to trade places here. Can you hand me a spatula, Chef? Rubber spatula.
Rubber spatula?
Mm-hmm. All right. I'll bring my pie crust over here.
Okay.
So you guys can see the rubber. And we're going to pour our coconut pie filling right into here.
That one, okay.
Almost overflows. You spread it all out nicely.
I get a bowl if you got extra.
I'm going to have a little extra, I believe. You know, Chef, he's got to taste the work, right? Okay. Here, I'll let you have this. All right. Got that all spread out now. Now we're going to just let this sit and cool for just a little bit. And we're going to get ready to start that ultimate meringue. Okay, now comes the important part of all. We have our 4 egg whites that's been sitting in this bowl. And we've kind of let them come to room temperature while we've been making the coconut cream pie. What we want to do is we want to beat our egg whites now. We want to beat them. You want to make sure that you don't overbeat them, but you want to beat them until they get glossy. So for the purposes of not having you listen to a bunch of noise, I'm going to go ahead and beat them until we get to that point.
You don't realize how good that filling is to eat it just by itself.
All right, we're going to get to mixing these up and we'll be right back. If you can see, they're nice and foamy right now. While I'm beating, and we've been beating it on medium-high speed for about 2 minutes, and it's starting to get a glossy look. You want to stop your beater every once in a while to see if you're starting to get peaks. And we just are starting to get a little bit of loose peaks. So I'm going to beat it for another minute and we'll be back. Okay, if you can see now, the egg whites have that glossy white appearance. And when you stick your beaters in them and pull them up, we get peaks. The peaks will stay up. So what we want to do now, if you can see that in there, that our peaks are staying up, what we're going to do now is we're going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar. This is, I always use McCormick's cream of tartar. This helps stabilize your meringue and also helps keep it from shrinking so much when you bake it. Have you ever baked a meringue pie and all the meringue shrinks around the pie itself? So we add just a 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar. And I'm going to mix this up a minute. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to start adding our sugar. Got a 1/4 cup of sugar here. And I'm just going to add this about a tablespoon at a time until it's all incorporated. That's all of our sugar now. We're going to beat it until the stiff peaks come back. Okay, we're about there. You can see it's very glossy. And when you run your beaters through it, it makes what I call waves in the egg whites. We're going to shut this off and lift up our beaters. And if you can see, we have, see if you can see that at an angle. We have stiff peaks. And this is what you're looking for when you're doing your meringue. You want to have your stiff peaks. So we're going to get ready to spread this on our pie. Okay, we've got our pie back over here now. Now it's time to put the Pierre de Resistance on here.
Let it cool before you add the meringue.
Gonna plop the meringue on all around. And when you put it on, you want to make sure that when you're spreading it all the way to where it touches the crust. You want it to seal with that crust all around the edges. If you can see what I'm doing at all here, I hope you can.
Yeah, they can.
You want to make sure that it's touching your crust on the outside.
Let's get your camera back just a hair. Now they can see the whole pie.
All right. I'm going to get the rest of this covered, and then we're going to show you how we do our little decoration at the end. Okay, we have our Mile High meringue pie. Now what I do to our peaks is I just take a spoon and I just touch it. I just go all around, just very briefly, and pull up. No method to it, no rhyme or reason, just touch it and pull up. Touch it and pull up. And that's what's going to give us our little peaks on our pie. Sometimes it's better to use a knife, but I grabbed the first thing I saw, and that was my spoon. So,
Knife to a gunfight.
Knife to a gunfight. All right. We got a couple more here on the sides. We got a curly Q meringue. It's hanging on the spoon. Okay, and the thing that I do, and you don't have to do this, is right before I stick it in the oven, I just take a little, I'll taste it in a minute. I just take a little bit of coconut and spread it around on the top.
Oh yeah, you gotta do that.
And it'll toast the coconut a little bit while it's toasting the meringue. Just a little bit. All right. I've got my oven preheated to 350 degrees. I'm going to put this in there and I'm going to keep an eye on it and let it go for probably about 15 to 20 minutes. Like I said, you just got to keep an eye on it. You'll know how it is, how you want it to be. And when you see the color that you want, you're going to take it out. We'll show you what it looks like when we're done. But if you can see a good close-up of it before it goes in. Yummy, yummy. All right, we'll be right back. Okay, there you have it. One coconut meringue, cream meringue pie, hot out of the oven. You can see the meringue doesn't shrink. Fully covers our pie. It's pretty thick, pretty tall meringue. You can see this. And this isn't filling. This is crust that's sticking out right here.
That's a Texas size or a Denver Mile High pie.
Not really a Mile High pie, but it's got plenty of meringue on it, that's for sure. So I kept this in the oven on 350 degrees for about 10 minutes. Just enough to get some of the coconut lightly toasted, get some nice golden brown on our peaks and on our meringue. So now this needs to cool. It needs to chill for 2 to 3 hours before you cut into it, if it lasts that long. But for best results, you should let it chill at least a couple of hours. So we're going to let it sit here at room temperature for just a little bit. And then we're going to stick it in the refrigerator and let it sit in the refrigerator for a couple of hours. When we cut up a piece, we'll show you what it looks like.
And while I've been in the background doing dishes and doing stuff like that, one of those 19.5-cent turkeys I bought last week, I got it out and thawed it, injected it full of Tony Thackeray's butter Creole marinade. Man, that stuff's good. Sprayed it down with butter spray and rubbed it with butter and sprinkled on them. We bought this not too long ago. I was giving it a try. It's Kevin's Paleo Keto Chicken Seasoning. Doesn't have a lot of salt in it, so that's what you see, the speckles on the outside. So I'm gonna get this big bird covered and stick it in the oven. We're gonna get it cooking.
So we'll be back.
And there's that turkey. I just got out of the oven. Really good looking. Let you know what it tastes like.
I just have to say, guys, this is the best thick coconut cream pie. I hope you guys have a chance to give it a try.
It's really good.
We're already munching on it. So yummy. If you want more meringue, just double the recipe for the meringue. We don't like a ton of meringue. We like more filling than meringue, as opposed to a lot of pies that are more meringue than filling. So if you want more filling, just double the amount of egg whites, double the recipe for the meringue.
Maybe one day we'll make our triple citrus, triple sec pie.
Yeah, we have a triple citrus, triple sec pie that we make during the summertime. And it has 3 layers to it. And it's really good, but...
Yeah, it's a summertime kind of pie.
Cheers, guys. Hope you enjoy it and have a chance to make it. Delicious coconut cream pie. We'll see you in the next video.
Have a good night.
Bye, guys.